Now to that breaking news in Alaska, the earthquake about 7 miles off the coast of Anchorage, Alaska. There's a tsunami warning for the southern part of the coast, and we've got CBS News weather producer David Parkinson joining us now by phone. David, what can you tell us?
Yeah, so it's interesting. The aftershock from the initial earthquake is actually what has triggered the tsunami warning. So the Tsunami Warning Center put out a statement, and the National Weather Service put out a statement saying there's no tsunami that's expected off of the original earthquake. And then when the aftershock occurred, that's when they issued the tsunami warning. But it's for a very limited area. It's for the Cook Islands, parts of Kodiak, that section of Alaska. But it's not expected to impact somewhere down like a Washington State, Oregon, or California. The other thing to note on this is it's over the next sort of 6 hours. That's really the risk time for the tsunamis. It's a short duration period, but it's got the way it has to propagate out and hit the coast. But that's the concern, is that there could be more aftershocks that might create more tsunami waves.
So if I have this correct, the earthquake occurred offshore, so that is under the ocean? Is that our understanding?
Yeah, so that's the understanding, is that it was just in the Anchorage area. So the most intense shaking was felt in downtown Anchorage. And in terms of when we take a look at what's called a shake map, which is where all the sensors are reporting any sort of damage, it was really centered right around downtown Anchorage. That was
wow. We've got a picture here, David, of a road that is crumpled pretty dramatically. There's a car down in a maybe 6 or 10 feet down. The concrete has completely been sheared away. The reason I ask about the location of the earthquake is because looking at the topography of the Anchorage area on the map we were just showing, is Alaska protected in some way by those outlying islands and by the inlets and narrows, the natural harbor that Anchorage enjoys?
Yes, so yes and no. So it definitely helps to have those islands. The only issue that you can get is similar to when you have storm surge with a hurricane, is when everything gets eventually funneled into a smaller area, it's got nowhere to go, and so that can build things. But the concern for the tsunami right now is not for the Anchorage area, and it's partly because you have that protection of the natural harbor there.
So in the absence of a warning for the Anchorage area, which I take to be good news, I'm guessing that wherever the warning is now directed is going to be, for this part of the country, less populated than Anchorage.
Yeah, absolutely. And so they're fairly remote islands that are covered. The hope is that people have communications so that they can hear it coming and get to higher ground. Obviously, that's a bit of a problem when you're in rural areas. You need to make sure that push alerts go out to the phones or, radio broadcast that message. But this is not an area that's necessarily stranger to this kind of thing happening.
And how long of a delay can there be? You think of thunder and lightning just being a few seconds, earthquake and tsunami. What kind of delay is possible?
So when you take a look at the distance from where the center of the earthquake was, that's what determines how long the delay is. So if, and it is not, but if the tsunami were to make it to, let's say, Central California, it might take 18 hours to do that. It might take 12 to 18 hours to make it to Japan. But for that immediate area, it would be within the next 6 hours tops.
The next 6 hours. And does Anchorage and the Anchorage area have a long history with tsunamis?
They have a long history with earthquakes, but they're one of the areas that are most prone to be seeing that in the U.S. But the number of tsunamis that have actually hit the Anchorage area are very limited. But that's also because, again, they have a little bit of the protection, and they're not necessarily being affected by the tsunami either.
The Alaskan coast is home to probably the most productive fishing fleet in America. Is that a concern? Boats on we could say Anchorage is well populated, and the warning is for outside the Anchorage area, which is good news, but that's an area where there's a lot of boats on the water. Is that a concern?
Yeah, so it depends exactly how far out you are. One of the things that a lot of the boats will do is they will go out to sea because so you don't have necessarily a wave, right? The ocean just raises as opposed to, something that would crash over the boat. So a lot of times, if you're in a harbor, this happened in the case of a tsunami that hit the West Coast in Monterey and in Santa Cruz. Any boat that could got out of the harbor because that's where the tsunami impact would be felt, is in the harbor, not out in the open ocean.
All right, David Parkinson, weather producer and talking encyclopedia on all these subjects. We appreciate it. We'll bring you more updates as we get them. But once again, there's a tsunami warning in Alaska following an earthquake offshore, 6.7 earthquake, some dramatic pictures, no injuries so far. As we learn more, you'll hear it from us.